Good afternoon, and thank you to Stefan and all the online followers, not followers, participants. So it's a wonderful morning, just getting to afternoon, getting to see all of us. We came late, and even today, when the day is gone, we've been having all our African directors here in Nairobi. There's also the social action people. Those are the managers that deal with communities right on the ground. That's empowerment and seeking to see what we evangelize by in word and in deed, in partnership with the church. So the deed part of our managers were here as well, and that took us quite some time, or rather, we concluded yesterday. Dr. Cornelius, a medical doctor from Malawi, is here with me. He's also one, yes, thank you for giving him a clap because he's from outside Kenya, so Kenyans, you can appreciate him. He's also one of our partners. When we teach in Matru, the urban mission is usually one of the faculty members and a few others of my colleagues. Some of you. Oh, the students are amazing, okay. They are your students, Dr. Cornelius Salome coordinates our missions, administrator across Africa. Jane here is one of the Kenyan Missions Association's members. She had here coming here. She really wanted to be here. Whom else am I leaving? Sahu and Salome are one. If you know that math, my wife, Professor Rosemary from AMU, she's also one of the faculty members. But also came with my pastor, Pastor Oliver, from Mathare. No, I pastored the church, he took over, and so I knew he's a handsome man. So if you choose to have, I would say this is the reason you can answer all the questions. And Pastor Obiango, also from Mathare, who grew up in Mathare itself. He has an amazing story, was a gangster, and the Lord saved him a number of years back as we did a mission in Mathare. If we had time, I'd hoped we would have had a panel for them to answer a lot of questions. And we do have Captain Soti, who also is related to Tafakari, but he's the director of missions in AE. He knows this place, but he couldn't get me the right pin. And so we got lost. We only go here through what you've said. The class becomes the teacher as well. We picked up a gentleman called David, whose house is one of those that were demolished as this road was being built, and he gave us lessons as he guided us here. How he lost his house, how they were never repaid, they are still waiting, and gave us a bit of some real teaching. Like Stefan said, where you get into the vehicle and you're moving around within the places so that you really get to learn. As we climbed upstairs, I saw a tailoring project. And I say to Dan, hey, this looks like what we do. And he said to me, no, we partner with African Enterprise to do this tailoring program. I said, okay, this is African Enterprise. So that's part of what we do, working with communities. And what a joy seeing you as practitioners from all over gathered here. So that we can engage together. I've never been to this place. I've heard a lot about it. I believe as Tafakari was beginning, but I've never been here, so it's such a joy. In the few minutes before me, I'm engaging with us on connecting upper level society, that is leadership of the people in governance, in approaches to urban ministry that is relating with the urban poor. Of course, we already know when we speak of the people in governance, these are not just the county leaders, government leaders, politicians, which is where we often throw the stone. We say the politicians and policies, why are all these slums still there? That's where often we want to go. But there is also the opinion leaders. When as African enterprise, we build toilets, like in Korogosho, we built close to 200 what we call flying toilets in view of dealing with where there aren't toilets or limited toilets. We discovered very early we had to engage the local people. That it cannot be, and I know we all know this lesson, it's not doing it for them, but doing with them. That is seeking to relate with the local people, where they need to be empowered, empower them. And we've seen all sorts of things. You drop your maram or sand, stones. The next day you come, they are gone. They flew on their building somewhere else. You can see they are the ones there. Those are our rocks or stones, but you cannot get them back. But as we learned the hard way, we knew it had to be theirs, not ours. Once it's theirs, we all know the lesson. They defend it with their lives because it's theirs. They are bricks, no longer our bricks for them to build, it's our bricks. So educating the people, empowering them so that they become leaders, so that it's not just the politician, as we know in the status quo, but it's everybody at various levels of leadership, including the women, which we learned early, because men will often not be around, but when you empower the women, who may be selling vegetables around, they own the project and they become the watchmen. And of course, they will, of course, use the facilities, but they also become part of the process. Now, in the National Slum Upgrading and Prevention Policy, session paper number 2 for Kenya for 2016, they traced Nairobi slums to the colonial era. And they say that's where as the British government, the colonial rule, that's where they demarcated Nairobi. And for Africans, some of us may not know it was illegal for an African to come into the city without what they called kipande, the same card we use today, which is ID, but the same name. You have to have a pass to come into Nairobi. So Africans were at the outskirts of the city, kind of crammed, waiting for a chance to get in. But as they also got in, there weren't facilities or houses for the Africans. If the whites were in Mogaiga, Lavington, the upmarket places, and so they would only have, rather they had to drift to the empty places like Kibera, like Mathare, like Korogosho, which means trash, and to find means and ways of settling there so that they could be working, providing services for the whites or for the elites, because of course we know even then African elites were also coming into place. I don't know in India, in Ghana, where you come from, or Nigeria, what the history would be, but I found it interesting. It's good to know the histories of the slums that are around us, or the slums that we seek to minister. We need to know the history. So reading the history was interesting for me because I know the places, I drive the places, pass the places, but never bothered to know the history. So poor governance and policy making in relation to slums growth and lack of slums upgrade. Poor policy and governance is a major factor that continues to see that slums perpetuate or continue and that slums are not upgraded. That is, they continue increasing in numbers and the upgrading of slums isn't as well happening as it ought to be. So number one, and I just have like 4 points. One is lack of the ability to enforce planning regulations. Planning regulations. It's basically known that building alongside rivers should be wrong One, you need to protect the river, and it's also known the rivers may flood. And a case we just had in Nairobi in May, with the ruins in Mathare, houses were literally lifted. I call them houses, of course, when you look, they are what the houses in the slum. So they were literally lifted and people died. Some statistics say 13, some statistics say more than that. So the ability to enforce that houses, whether a shanty house or whatever kind of a house, should not be built along river banks. Governments not enforcing what should be a very basic rule or law, which is in paper but not enforced. Why not enforced? Part of it is due to lack of resources, where the government may not be having enough staff, whether it's county staff who will move around to ensure that the rules are being followed. Because one day, people who live in the slums are very resilient. If you've driven along the road where slum is beginning, one day you see two structures. Before you know it, they are 10. Before you know it, they are 20. You demolish them, they are back. So you must be back. They are resilient. I mean, 100% is resilient. We all know the law of nature. Hunger gives passion, and they are passionate. So the government needs to be as passionate in enforcing those laws. Sadly, even churches built in those places, because pastors are also people with passion. You find churches along those same places which ought not to have any buildings, including, like, if you move around Kibera, the railway, the train passes through here, and I tell you, when the train is passing, your heart will be pumping, because this is like just living on a total danger zone. But there's no reinforcement. Structures will come right literally next to the track line, and it's not too far from here. Could be a tour of a lunch can show you that. So failure to enforce, corrupt officials. And Pastor Oliver here, I'll give him a moment as I come to the end. He has engaged with them. Corrupt government officials, corruption, which is a vice we already know, so we will not beat the drum until we break it, but it's there. Corrupt government officials, that's another reason why the policies that are known are not enforced. Many slums also are often one ethnic group. Like, I know this area, we know the powerhouse, it's a powerhouse of some political party or some particular tribal inclination. And so when you seek to enforce anything, they'll simply say, you're playing around with my votes. Those are votes. So you say, clear the people out of here, and the guy will be having cold feet forever, because he knows those are his votes. And in a way, they are captive votes. He knows that's a bank, a votes bank that they count on. And so again, that becomes very hard for officials, another factor for them to implement these particular policies that are very obvious. Governments in some cases do not develop slums, concerned about encouraging the growth of slums. Now, I know even when I use the word demolish slums, someone listening outside here would literally begin throwing stones at us. But again, we know that that at times has to be the case. And so governments often are hesitant to develop slums, roads. It took forever for some of these roads to be here, because part of the reason is simply saying we will encourage more people into this area if we develop the roads in this place. If you are in the shoes of that government official, you have the same dilemma. So I ask myself, like Jesus would ask, is it good or bad to do good on Sabbath? So when there are no laws, do we say people stay without lights or without roads or without facilities? They are already there in the concern that by so doing, we will encourage them to stay there longer? I mean, these are hard questions which you and me, full of compassion, our hearts will drift fast to say, let them stay on. But if you are in the shoes of a governance, those are hard questions we still must face and reckon with. The fear to encourage slums, and so slums, no water. We've had to do drainages in Korogosho, places where there were no drainages, to deep drainages and have water flow, because places would be flooded. And we know the result of that, cholera and other diseases, and it comes back to who? To the same government. I mean, we must pay those bills, or it weighs on the economy ultimately. So there is need for some serious thinking of how to approach it, but yet there are things that must be done. Even if we are a policy maker, rather than saying we fear, we will encourage the ongoing slums to continue. Failure to incorporate slum dwellers as part of the overall planning processes. Where should the road be? Places that need lighting, places that need water. Carrying out evictions. David, whom we came with here, who showed us the way, he said they were given 1 month. We tried to push him. Are you sure it was 1 month? He said, yes, and if I'm wrong, around there, 1 month. That's when he got to know he has to leave the house. This road, the road is going to run through where his house was. Of course, it's possible he never got the information, a failure on his part, but rather, so to say, sensitizing the communities, not assuming that they do not know what they need. And I know most of us here are involved with development, and so you know that we need to involve the people, hear their views, hear their reasonings, talk to them, and let them receive their input as we carry out development. And as we do that also, we also end up educating the people. I've seen in one of the places where we've labored with Pastor Oliver, we do have members out of the same place, the same community. It's not right in the center of Madare, it's on the edge, but we've seen young people being developed. Today we have PhDs out of that same place. Pastor Oliver himself, he has his masters from AIU out of the same neighborhood. And we do have a member of parliament that came out of the same community. And so just that belief that in the abilities God given, that people can be empowered, they can think and reason, so that therefore we engage them in bringing development. So not assuming and really relating with them. In listening to David's talk as we came here is enough to underscore that particular point. The big one, security, land, tenure. It's a major issue. Often, slums are on government land, or on grabbed land, or on idle land, or on riparian land, lands along the river. Owners, most of the slum dwellers, out of this policy, as they researched on it, they found 85% of slum dwellers are tenants. 85%. They are not the owners of where the structure that they live in is. And even for the one that owns the land where the structure is, they do not have a title deed. I was talking to Pastor Oliver before this. We do have a building which is a stone, very good stone structure church, including with a balcony, but we don't have a title deed. So if we are thought as developers, we wouldn't have mobilized the community to build that church. We have simply been thinking one day something may just come up and we are told zero. This building has to come down. So lack of title deeds, the lack of it. And if you're living in a structure, definitely, that is not, that already you can tell the land is shaky, in terms of the title deed, and you're in it. So therefore, developing that structure, of course, you simply stay there just because you've no choice. You not add any value to that particular structure, and therefore the obvious dilapidation of structures that we see because there is no real commitment to add any value. So the bottom row is lack of titles, tenure in slums is a major thing that policymakers must address, and we have also, whether it's faith people of goodwill, that we must also engage in and not just to leave it and assume it will happen. There can be many reasons why governments would be slow on that. And that's where we need people that can lobby, including churches, so that that can be addressed. Now, I finish with a case of the Kenya government initiative in slum upgrading. The Kibera Slums Upgrade 2011 report. And it's possible someone else, Dr. Nancy, might have covered this already. I'm not sure. Okay, because where we are, this slum, plans to upgrade Kenya's slums. This was the first slum to be identified because, of course, it's known as the biggest slums in Africa. Soweto is the biggest, but we know this is more informal than what we do have in Soweto. So when you speak of real slum, and not the Soweto in Kenya, you know which Soweto I'm talking about. So, of course, Kibera, the population is estimated anywhere 1 million to 1.5 million in what is a 2.5 square kilometer in terms of the acreage of the place. 2.5 square kilometers. Envision that, 1.5 people. In Nairobi, the implementation of this program commenced in Kibera, the informal settlement, specifically, the pilot area was Soweto East Village, Soweto East, another Soweto, but now here. Various preparation activities were undertaken in this village, including socio-economic, physical mapping, enumeration of residents, which my friends say that never happened, but it's documented. So someone might need to investigate further on that. Preparation of a physical land use plan and the construction of an access road. We use that access road coming. Due to the high density of part of it in the village, a strategy was developed in which residents were temporarily relocated in order to pave way for upgrading of the settlement. In view of this, 2 hectares of decanting site across the settlement were obtained for purposes of constructing housing units to serve as temporary relocation premises for the Kibera resident. I don't know, Dan isn't here. Oh, Dan, you said you've lived here for over 15 years or you've worked here. So if you have information, I doubt this report that there was places where they were relocated to temporarily as their houses were being built.
Yes, camping sites.
Okay. Yes. There was a place.
Yes. It's called Canaan.
Oh, Canaan land. With houses that were built for them. Everybody.
Not any site. So
sorry, that word is about
decanting.
Yes. Decanting means what?
Decanting means we move you from your current place. You stay here temporarily as we upgrade here.
Okay.
Then you come back, we go to the next phase, that until we.
And so tell us, how did that happen? Did that happen? Because David, who brought me here, says, as far as he knows, no one has benefited, including the payment. I mean, this is learning from the, the classroom.
Okay, so the first phase were taken to the place, but I think they were thinking of upgrading the structures, but not upgrading the minds of the people. So the transformation was on the structures, but not on the minds. So people were not ready to live in such spaces. So what happened was, the people who were taken to those good structures came back to the community, came back to the slum. Then those good houses were rented to people, and the people who were in slums that were supposed to occupy those places for a while were now landlords and landladies. So they could be paid because they were supposed to pay 1,000 for the utility bills, electricity and water. But now there are people around Langata and some outskirts of Kibra that could give them more than 1,000. So you come back to the slum, then you get 5,000 from somebody who is able to pay that, and you remit the 1,000 to the government, then you keep the 4,000. So the people who were taken to the place, they came back to the community, but also the project stalled. It never continued past the first phase.
The houses.
Yes.
And where are those houses?
They are along the southern side.
So they are the ones that we saw, and they are unfinished.
No, they are complete.
Yeah. The decanting ones.
Yes, that's it.
What about the houses that were now being built for the wider community?
It's story.
That's all to this day. Okay. Again, because of what? Court cases.
There are a lot of theories around, so we don't understand it very well.
Okay. So reasons not being very clear. But again, it also shows the vulnerability of the poor. Because it's a house being built for the poor. They will not fight for themselves. They will not pursue there's a court case that they will not come together. So
They were probably not consulted.
okay, including also the consultation and the money to pay the bills so they can get a lawyer to push for them. So really, I mean, it just becomes the dilemma of the poor person. And we are called to be a hand. Not handouts, but a hand that transforms, like you say, Dan, educating the minds. A friend built a house for his parents who lived in the slums, outside the slums in Buru, Komarok. Some of us know the estate. Took the parents there who had raised him in the slum. After a short while, they were back in the slums. Statistics say people who grew up in slums tend to move back to the slum. They gravitate. They simply say to the son, this is where everybody is. Things are cheap. I can buy tomatoes at my doorstep. So many reasons. The money. The site consists of relocation housing. Construct around 1,800 households were relocated. Oh, alarm already went. Sorry. Okay. The site consists of 600 housing units comprising of 17 blocks, 3-room houses, 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, very good plan, kitchen, washing area. About 1,200 households from Kibera, Soweto East were relocated to Langata, awaiting redevelopment of the area. Modalities for the construction of houses are being worked on. However, the process has been slowed down, as we've mentioned, by the court case. So if I multiply 600 housing units times 5, that gives me 3,000 out of 1.5 million, who are the residents, the counted numbers of people in Kibera. The task remains huge. I've mentioned a number of points, which possibly, as we come to questions, I don't know, Dr. Viv or Doc, as we transition, would you allow Pastor Oliver just to make 1 or 2 reflections on dealing with officials and possibly also empowering members, or if it comes after Dr. Viv, that will also be okay.
Okay, I stand here. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. I did a little bit about the corruption and dealing with the leaders, especially with the leaders in the slums area, as we have stayed there and worked there for quite some time. And the corruption is so real in such a slum areas, because to us as people that live in slum areas, we are like the property of the politicians. So they will really not want us to move from the slums to other areas, because the slums, they consider us having a lot bigger number of votes coming from there than going to campaign to Karen and Garden State to other areas there. So when we were building our church in Madari Northern Community Center, we realized that it was so hard to get even the permission and the papers to be able to build a place. We were sometimes called by the MCA who wanted to sell to us a plot that belongs to another bishop.
Member of the community.
Yes,
MCA.
MCA, yes, member of the town assembly, member who wanted to sell to us a plot that belonged to a bishop, so that we'd be able to build. He came up with papers that were already stamped, allotment letters. He came up with paper that are in his name, but we did a due diligence and found out that those papers were fake. And as we live in slums, many plots have been sold to double people, 3 people, 4 people, because of the thickness of the papers and the corruption that is there. You'll find that every stage of building, there are people that comes to get money from you on behalf of the member of the town assemblies. There are organized gangs and organized groups of people that represents the politicians in those areas. And these organized gangs are used by the politicians so that they can be able to get money from you. You can't even pour the material there. They will come and ask you for security fees and maybe ask you for ground fees so that you'll be able to pour your material somewhere and be able to build there. So there's corruption, so much corruption in slum areas. And most of this corruption is created by the political leaders, by class officials. When you begin to build the construction, they'll come to you with many questions, desiring that at every step you build, they want you to give them some money. Every step. If you are building a story building, when you begin at the ground floor, they'll come, they need about 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. The more you continue to build, because we lack titles, we don't have titles. We only have a lot of letters and maybe cards that are used by the city council offices so that we may be able to try to gather money from the area. So those are the kind of people we're dealing with and the kind of corruption that is there in the slum areas. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for beautiful presentation.